Welcome to Limitless and Unfiltered. I'm Jenny Kramer, and this is my co-host, Maria DeCarmo. This is a space where we get real, raw, and unfiltered about life, business, and everything in between. Because let's be honest, navigating ambition, relationships, and personal growth isn't always easy, but it's totally worth it. And in here, we challenge the norms, break through the limits, and have the conversations no one else is having without the fluff, without the filters. So if you're ready to step into your power, own your story, and build a life that's truly yours, then you're in the right place. So let's dive in, because together we are limitless and unfiltered. So today we are hopping on and we are chatting about pregnancy. We're also going to go into our birthing stories because let's be real, nobody actually talks about the real when it comes to how awful sometimes pregnancy can be, or even these horrific birthing stories. So we're going to get real and talk about what Maria and I experienced. So Maria, let's jump in and let's hear about your outlook on your pregnancy and maybe some of the outcomes that you had during your delivery process.
Absolutely. We're going to dive right in. I'm going to give you tip number 1 to start off the bat, okay? And then this will make sense as we go with my story. So tip number 1 is be open to absolutely anything happening during your birthing plan. And also, tip number 2, if you don't have a birthing plan, that's okay. I did not. I did not have a birthing plan. I did not care to have one, and we'll get to that in a bit. But yeah, so tip number 1, tip number 2. So let's start with a pregnancy. So when we decided to start trying, which is such a funny term, but we decided to actually actively try to have a baby, we didn't expect to get pregnant so quickly. We have had friends that have struggled for a bit, and you know, I've seen kind of that's the dark side of trying and not succeeding, let's say.
It's such a common thing these days.
It is, and nobody talks about it.
No, and I feel like people should talk about it because it's kind of like mini therapy.
Oh, 100%. And this is also why I tell people stop asking couples when they're going to have a baby or when they're going to have their next. It drives me mental because you don't know what that couple is going through. You don't know if they've already started trying or if they've like years deep into trying and now you're touching a trauma point for them if they haven't had a baby. And it's just like, stop asking.
No, for sure. I 100% agree with you on that because it's true, right? In any type of situation, it can be traumatizing for them. But I also feel like sometimes family members do it, but they're not doing it at all to cause any heartache or pain on the couple. You know, I would say like sometimes people, they get into it and they're like, oh, you know, you're next. And they're not doing it at all to be hurtful in any way. They're simply just doing it because they're positive people and they believe it's going to happen and they want to reaffirm and tell them that yes, it's going to happen to you because you deserve it, right?
Yeah, 100%. And honestly, I don't think that any of those comments come from a negative place. I think it comes from a place of excitement, you know, and it's I get it. I get the excitement. I get the like, you know, the your next comment or all that. But I think that maybe with me, I've had so many friends very like close to me that have struggled so hard, and hearing those comments or like being in a room and them hearing the comment, I could just see the pain just like overflow them. And I'm like, because not many people are open to that, right? Like if you're obviously close to somebody that's giving you the opportunity and you've provided the safe space for them to tell you that they have been struggling, then by all means talk about it and support each other. But it's the non-ill-intended comments where sometimes it's like I see it all the time in my group of friends and I'm like, oh no, because I know who's been struggling and who's not. I'm like, oh, let's not ask that question. I'd always try to divert. I'm like, oh yeah, so the weather, you know? Yeah, like anything, I'm just like, like panic mode sets in. I'm like, no, this is so painful for people. But I get it. It doesn't come from a place of negativity. It definitely comes from a place of excitement for the couple.
Totally, yeah. And I just, yeah, it's like when people are hesitant to talk about, you know, miscarriages, right? Mm-hmm. Like nobody talks about it. So then people think that it doesn't happen common. It's not common, right? But really it is common. And it's only now becoming common because people are actually talking about like their stories, right? So I feel like with fertility, I strongly feel like it's something that people should be more open about too.
Yep. And that's why I think you and I have resonated really well with this podcast, because we are going to open the door to certain topics that have been taboo for people, and maybe they've felt like they can't talk to somebody. Well, you're in the right place, because we're going to talk about it all, and whether we've personally experienced it or not, or we've had people around us that have experienced it, we're going to bring it to the table to hopefully create that awareness of like, let's talk about the hard things that women go through. Let's talk about the hard things that mentally we can go through, right? So
Yes.
that's funny. We went on a tangent there.
Sorry.
Love it. No, I love it. I love it. Yeah, so let's get into like our birthing story. So when I decided, okay, it's time, I want to have a baby, let's try this. We weren't expecting to get pregnant so quickly, and such a blessing, right? It's such a like little miracle that happens, or a big miracle that happens. And it was a scary time for me. I was excited, but also very like, what's next kind of thing. And that's my personality, right? That's my go-getter, like wanting to know the next step in like the process. When in reality, you can't really control any of that. You just kind of roll with it, right? Like,
Yeah.
take it day by day.
Yep.
Yeah, you can't just, you can have all the expectations, but you really truly have to live the experience moment by moment. And so my whole time that I was like thinking about having a baby, I was like looking up blogs and like looking up things. This is before even finding out, and reading how much women loved their pregnant body, and how much it was like, oh, I love it so much, and it's so beautiful to see like this human grow. And so in my mind, I was like, perfect. I love it. I can't wait for that. Well, I got there, and I definitely, at the beginning, obviously you can't tell, right? Like it's just a tiny little thing inside you, so you can't tell. And then I went through a bunch of like health things. So I won't make that story too long, but essentially going through doctor's checkups, figuring out whether I wanted a midwife or an OB. I had always said I wanted a midwife, but I wanted a midwife with having the birth at a hospital. Just maybe being in the healthcare field and knowing what I know about things that could potentially go wrong, and how quick you need to act when an emergency happens. I was like, I want a midwife throughout my entire pregnancy, but I want to be able to deliver at a hospital. In the case that anything happens with the baby or myself, we're there, The equipment is there, the hands are there, like I just want to be there. And so my doctor was like, yep, of course we can do that. And she started to review my medical history, and she was like, wait, didn't you have a blood clot at 21? And I'm like, yeah, but I'm 30 or 29. I remember when I got pregnant, I was like, I'm 29. That was years ago. And she was like, okay, I'm not sure if you need to be seen by a specialist. You probably will. She was like, but I can tell you right now that just with this history, you won't have a midwife. And that kind of shattered and broke my heart a bit, because again,
Yeah.
here is something that I wanted planned, and life went, nope. That's not what's happening. And so I was referred to some OBs at a specialized hospital that they deal with maternal issues. And as soon as I got there and they did all of my like records and stuff, they were like, no, yeah, you need to go see a thrombosis clinic, which is essentially a blood clot clinic. They deal with anything circulatory problems, and they will tell you whether you need treatment or not. And I'm like, pardon me, treatment for what? Like, I'm pregnant.
Wow.
What treatment do I need? And after long, extensive tests and going back and forth between my OB and the thrombosis clinic, they came to a treatment plan where they wanted to put me on blood thinners for the entire pregnancy. And then that would mean that they would have to schedule and induce me so that I would be off of the blood thinners before going in, have the baby, and then back on the blood thinners after that.
Wow.
When I heard all that, I was just like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, this is not what I read.
And you would never have known that. Like,
No.
thank goodness you were with educated professionals who knew what to do right away. That's crazy.
Yeah, and like I said, I didn't read any of that, right? Like all I read online was how, beautiful and flourishing and magical pregnancy was. I had never read that if you had like a condition before, there would be the potential of your birthing plan or like your whole pregnancy being a little bit different. I just read all the rainbows and butterfly stuff. So, it was a shock to my system. And at the time I was just like, I have so many questions. Like, is this treatment going to affect my baby? Is this treatment going to affect me? Like, can it cross the placenta? Like at this point now my brain is full on mom mode, right? Like when you get pregnant, I think people wait till you have a baby to say congrats mama. Like it's from the second you find out that you are pregnant that you are a mom. Like your brain shifts. Right?
And you know what the crazy part is? You're never alone anymore. Like,
No.
You're never alone.
I hadn't even thought of that. That's so true.
The first thing I thought, I'm like, I'm never alone. I'm like driving the car and I'm not alone.
You're so funny. That's so true. But yeah, it was quite the experience. I like became mama bear. I was like, well, I want to know everything about this treatment, and like, are there possibilities of this crossing the placenta? Are there possibilities of me harming my baby? And I got to a point where I was just so overwhelmed with everything that I said, fuck this. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do the treatment at all. I'm going to risk it. I'm just going to, I'm going to do this the natural way. I don't want medication into my system. Like, I had already dealt with blood thinners at the age of 21. I saw what it did to my body. Like, I knew what was coming, so I was like, no, like, if it did that to my body, I can't imagine what it might do for the baby. And yes, I went and did a bunch of research and all of the things and resources, and there's a multitude of resources that will tell you that it doesn't cross the placenta and, it doesn't affect the baby. But I was like, no, I'm not doing it. And so for weeks, I was just like, nope, not getting this done. Every time I would have an appointment, they would say, okay, are you sure? Like, you really should be on this. And then it took my OB to sit down with me. And he was phenomenal. Mm-hmm. And he sat there and he said, listen, I know I'm not a woman, which to me was the first, like, you are a godsend, right? Because yes, you're not a woman, but you are a professional in this, right? And I get where his opinion was coming from. And he said, I know I'm not a woman, and I know that my body doesn't change, and I know that I don't grow a baby inside. He was like, but from my professional standpoint, he was like, my concern is not just delivering your baby. That's not my main priority. He's like, my main priority is delivering your baby with a healthy mom. And I was like, okay. And he was like, the last thing that I would want is for some sort of emergency to happen where you develop a blood clot while you're pregnant and you don't make it and the baby is now left without you. And I know that this is kind of like a little bit of fear, like enticing, right? Like he gave it to me worst case scenario, which is rare, but it happens. And that moment like totally shifted my mindset. And I don't want to say that I stepped into it with fear, because I didn't, but I stepped into it with like okay, now I know everything I need to know. I know the possibilities of what could happen if I do take this medication treatment. And now I know the possibilities of what could happen if I don't, because I didn't want to face that.
No, not at all. But it's good that at least he had the balls to be like, hey, like, listen up, lady. Like, if you don't proceed with this, this is what could and possibly will happen. And is it really the risk that you're willing to take?
Yeah. And that was the biggest thing for me. It was like, okay, I need to measure what my risks are, what the pros and cons are for this, and make the informed decision that way. And so, I know that there's other women who have done it without the treatment, because I logged into a bunch of groups and I talked about all this. Like, I went really hardcore of like trying to find a support group in a community. But for me, it felt like, okay, like I know how aggressive my first blood clot is. I don't want this to happen and have to like deal with either long lasting effects for myself or not even being here present for my child. Like this, I wanted a baby, right? And so I decided to do the treatment, went through the entire pregnancy doing the treatment. Well, my first trimester I didn't, because that's when I decided, okay, moving forward I'll do it. But it was not a fun experience at all. I had to inject my belly. Like, my belly was not the cute belly like that you see on blogs and stuff, because it was bruises everywhere from the treatment. And then once the belly started to get too big and I couldn't inject myself there, I had to move over to my thighs, and that was very painful and like an experience that I was like, oh, is this really worth it? And well, I have 2 kids, so clearly it was worth it. But but yeah, it was a tough ride, a tough emotional ride, to even before our birthing process, that I was just like, I did not know any of this, I didn't even cross my mind that a single complication that I had almost 10 years before could affect the pregnancy that I have now. And I think that's where we're missing a gap in our like conversations with people and in the world, where these things can happen. And yes, the rate may be very low, but it's still there. Because pregnant women, even at the beginning, like whether you have conditions prior to or not, you're at an elevated risk of blood clots. That's like the number one thing that they tell you when you get pregnant. Like, okay, well, you're at an elevated risk of blood clots, so we need to be careful of like all the things, watch out for all the signs. But having a blood clot before and then getting pregnant, it just 10x's you. And I was like, okay, well then I guess I have to like watch out for a lot of other things. So anyways, I made that part of the pregnancy kind of unexpected and not fun. So I didn't like my body. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. And then there's like other things that when clients come into the office, and I'm sure you've experienced it too, but like women don't know all, like you can develop like blood pressure, pregnancy diabetes, which can cause low-term birth weight babies. Is that like...
Yep. Same thing with like getting cleanings done more often, right? Like getting your teeth cleaned more often is important during pregnancy. And I think a lot of women shy away from cleanings because they're like, oh no, it's an invasive procedure.
Yeah.
But in reality, like that bacteria inside of your mouth can also cause low birth weight babies. And so it's important, like it's all these things that you don't know before getting pregnant that you're like, oh my God. And so, I guess my third tip it is you're never going to know everything. You just got to do it. And so don't overwhelm yourself with like, I have to read up on everything about pregnancy before I even want a baby. Because like you just can't.
Definitely not.
Cannot. All right, but enough about my not birthing, because we haven't even got to that. My pregnancy story. I want to know about your pregnancy story, Jenny. Like, how did that all start, and how did you feel through it all?
Yeah. So when COVID happened, I ended up getting vaccines. I got 2 of them, and after that,
Before we continue, I just want to let our viewers know that we don't care whether you got the vaccine or not.
No, do not. No judging here. Judgment-free zone.
Yeah, whether you got it, I mean, now you've got now. Let's be fully transparent. You've got a co-host that did and a co-host that didn't. So we really could care less. We're very close friends. Like that should not alter anything, and I hope it doesn't alter your view on us. So you got a 50-50 here.
Yeah. So yeah, ended up getting both vaccines, and like right after that second vaccine, my period went crazy. I was like bleeding for like 3 out of the 4 weeks per month.
Gosh.
It was awful, and it really takes a toll on your emotional health, but also in your relationship too, because it's impossible to have any type of intimacy, right? So once things had kind of passed, I decided I was going to freeze my eggs because I was 33, went to a fertility doctor just to kind of see where my standpoint was. And I was like, you know what? I think this is a good idea for me, because I was on the fence. I was like, do I want to have kids? Do I not want to have kids? My husband and I, we had just been dating for maybe like a year or 2. It wasn't that I didn't think I was going to be with him forever. It was like, you just never know, right? So for me, it was...
And at this time, you weren't married yet?
No. We were just dating. And for me, it was like an insurance policy for myself. At the end of the day, it was like there if I wanted to do it, and it was there if I didn't want to do it. So I ended up going ahead with it because the doctor was like, you're 33. Everything is pretty good right now, but things start to severely decrease 34 and on. So obviously that kind of lit a fire under my butt. And I decided to go ahead with the freezing of the eggs, $12,000 later.
Holy shit. They don't tell you that.
No, very expensive, not having insurance. It makes it even more challenging. But for me, like I mentioned, it was an insurance policy. So it was a week process, lots of hormones, and then you go in for this procedure, which is not comfortable at all. So I'm sure any woman that's done fertility or egg freezing knows that it is an awful procedure in the sense of you're just all hopped up on hormones and emotional, and your stomach is sore because you're injecting needles a couple times a day into your belly. So all in all, I freeze my eggs, and I was not fortunate enough to get that many eggs. Normally people get in like the high double digits, so like 18, 19, 20 eggs. Mm-hmm. I got 4 mature and 2 premature. So they took my 4 mature and they took the 2 premature because they said, in time with science, they would be able to probably utilize the premature. So they kept them anyways. So anyone listening would know that 4 mature eggs it's not that great. They were like, pardon?
This is all like I'm learning with you.
Yeah. So, I was disappointed because you spend all this money and you're hoping to get like at least a dozen or 2 dozen or, of really good healthy eggs. That wasn't the case for me. Anyways, still went ahead, froze them. And just for the record here, like I did it on my own. I didn't do it with my husband. I just froze them. If one day I wanted to, they would be there. And it wasn't because I didn't think I was going to be with him. It was just, in this day and age, you just never know. Right? Yep. So I felt really good after that, in the sense of knowing that I had a little something on the side if it was something that I wanted to do one day.
Love that.
Yeah. So this entire time of like getting married and then talking about kids, I, in the back of my head, was like, always thought, I'm going to have issues. I've had issues since I was a kid. I didn't have a great outcome when I went to go freeze my eggs. You know, at the end of the day, if we can have at least one child, great. If we can't, we'll just get more dogs because we are obsessed with our dog. So anyhow, literally, you know, just not even trying. I still don't know how it happened. No, I'm just kidding. I just always say that because it's a freaking miracle. The month that we got pregnant, I had my period twice.
Oh my God.
So it's crazy. So anyhow, yeah, I was like, it's not gonna happen. It is what it is. And then my period's late. It's like 2 days late. And like, I'm like, oh, okay. Maybe it's just like one of those months. Then it's like 4 days late. Then it's a week late. So I'm like driving home from work and I'm like, yeah, I didn't get my period yet. It's really weird. And he's like, oh, really? He's like, maybe you should pick up a pregnancy test. And I'm like, yeah, sure. Okay. So I pick up a pregnancy test, head on home, go upstairs, take a shower. He's downstairs ordering pizza. I take the test and I'm like, holy mother of pearl, I'm pregnant. I go downstairs and I'm like, I'm pregnant. He's like, oh, pizza party. And I was like a stunned bunny because I'm like, how did this happen? Like, obviously I know how this happened, but like, that is how sure I was that it would be near to impossible for this miracle to happen. Because if you guys all think about it, it's like literally the right time, the right day, of the right moment. You know, the sun and the moon have to be aligned, like literally
Everything.
So yeah, we were pregnant and it was pretty wild.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So going forward to my pregnancy, I would say like my overall pregnancy was pretty good. Lots of nausea, really weird food cravings, and like things that I loved, like iced tea, like loved iced tea, despised it during pregnancy. I was like, no, don't want anything to do with it. Hated red meat, like all of that. But now I'm back to regular programming.
Yeah.
But yeah, pregnancy was pretty good. It was really hard for me to see the weight gain though. I didn't gain that much, but still like gaining 25 pounds on top of what I was, being 5'0" was difficult for me. But I would say like overall, my pregnancy was good. I was definitely the lucky one because that's not very common.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think I worked up until I was about 39 weeks.
Oh,
yeah, I went up just a week before my actual due date, and yeah, it was.
Now, how hard was it? How hard was it working dental hygiene with a belly?
Yeah, it was difficult. I stood. I was standing to see patients, which made it a little bit more comfortable. I was zonked, but
All the time.
yeah, I was really tired, but you know, at the time I owned my office, so it was like, gotta do this. And the unfortunate part was I had hired somebody to take over my mat leave because I hadn't told anyone in the office yet, and I was like, oh God. And I didn't take a long mat leave either. I literally was off. I was off for 6 weeks only because there was another hygienist at our office who ended up being pregnant the same time as me and only having the baby like a week before me. So
Nice.
my plans got a little shooken up, but we made it work. Yeah.
Okay, so now knowing your like pregnancy story, which wow, I didn't know any of that, Jenny. Like this is why I say this is going to be a safe space for people because nobody talks about this stuff.
Nope.
Nobody talks about it, and I'm glad that we have the space to do so. So knowing all of that and knowing, first of all, what or do you plan on keeping your eggs?
Yeah, it's so funny. Annual renewals up. Yeah, I'm gonna do it for one more year. It's just expensive. It's $630 a year just to keep those bad boys frozen.
My goodness.
Yeah.
For everything else that has already cost, yeah, fun. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, awesome. Okay, so now knowing your like pregnancy story and how that all came about and all the things you did and went through, tell us about your birthing story and maybe give us like your top tip of the birthing part or process, I should say.
Yeah, I think when you're ready to go and you're over being pregnant, you are done being pregnant. So my due date was November 6th, let's just say, only 2 days before my actual birthday. So I decided I was done. I was like, I just need this little guy out. It's time to evacuate. Your freaking lease is up. Let's go. So my doctor said, hey, if you want to go a little bit early, everything looks really good, we can schedule you in for an induction. And I know there's a lot of people who don't agree with it, and that's totally fine. I respect that. I understand that. But for me and where I was at, I was just like mentally, physically, emotionally drained. And I was just like ready to be done with it. So we went in on November 1st. Didn't want to go in on Halloween.
No.
And they started the induction. So I guess there's two types of inductions that can take place. There's the balloon and then there's the gel. Because our little guy's head was really close to the opening of the cervix, they were able to do the gel. Thankfully, because I've heard that the balloon could be quite painful. Yeah. So we did the gel. They sent me on my way home, and they're like, come back in about 5 hours. So went home, hanging out, and then close to the 5-hour mark, started to feel some really tight pains. Not anything major, but enough for me to be like, oh, this is uncomfortable. I'm not digging it. So we ended up going to the hospital. As soon as we got to the hospital, the pains just came on more drastically. And just for the record here, I do not handle pain very well. My husband will be the first to say that. I do not like pain. So yeah, they took me in, and they're like, you're only 2 centimeters. And I'm thinking to myself, holy fuck. If this is the pain I'm having at 2 centimeters, give me the drugs. They're like, what's your birthing plan? My birthing plan is the drugs. Just give me the drugs.
Make me comfortable.
I do not want to feel any pain. Like, that was like the main thing. Don't want to feel the pain. So takes you a while to get in, because let me tell you, everybody else was having a baby in November. It was so crazy. They're like, we're waiting for a room. I'm like, what do you mean you're waiting for a room? Like what happens in that case, right? Anyways, an hour later, we get into a room. They start setting everything up. They get me all organized, and they're like, we're gonna get the anesthesiologist in before he goes into surgery. I'm like, to hell you are getting him in. Like, I don't want to be one of those ladies who's caught off with the anesthesiologist being in like a 12-hour surgery and not getting any drugs. No, thank you. So he comes in, goes through everything. He was super lovely, and they actually let my husband stay in the room, which is quite rare. I know it happens, but they usually ask that you leave because it's quite a serious procedure to have done. My husband said it was like the most intense thing ever.
No, sir. No, sir. Let me go get him, because otherwise...
No, sir.
Yeah. He's going to be on camera, so... Okay.
Oh, he's cute. My husband said it was like quite the procedure, like watching it. He said the length of the needle was intense. He said it was by far the coolest thing he'd ever seen to date. Anyhow, that being said, once I got the drugs, that was great. Pain went away. And then, they're pumping you with fluids. And I had the sweetest nurse. And she was great. But 7 o'clock in the morning came along. I was finally, from like 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. That's how long it took me to be 10 centimeters.
Yeah, as well.
So crazy. So at 7 o'clock, they have like a nurse changeover. And I'm like, no, I don't want my nice nurse to leave me. Well, let me tell you, my nice nurse left, and I had this strong, opinionated woman of a nurse come on in, and she checks me, and she's like, why aren't we ready pushing? You're 10 centimeters. We got to get this show on the road. And I'm like, God, me and my husband look at each other like, what are we walking into, right? So the OB comes in, she checks, she's like, yep, you're ready to push. She was absolutely lovely. The OB, the nurse, she was tough cookie. So she gets me all ready, and she's like, you got to start to push. So I'm pushing. Maria, I thought I was going to push 3 times and this child would be out. And I said that out loud because I truly thought, I was like, I got this, I'm going to push really hard 3 times and he's going to be out. Yeah, no. And when I said that out loud, she looked at me and she's like, are you kidding me? She's like, you're going to be here for at least 2 hours pushing. Let me tell you, pushing ain't easy.
No, it isn't.
Pushing ain't easy. That's a workout. To the extent where I actually gave myself whiplash. 2 days after I gave birth, I literally was crippled in bed.
Oh my God.
I could not turn my neck from side to side. I was in like excruciating pain. It was awful. So she had me pushing on my back, on my side. I was throwing up while I was pushing.
Nice.
It was awful. And then all of a sudden, I started to feel severe pain. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm feeling pain. She's like, that's impossible. You can't feel pain. You have an epidural. I'm like, no, every time I push hard, I'm feeling this shock of pain. So what was happening was our little guy's head was stuck underneath my pelvic bone. So every time I pushed, his head was banging on my bone. I'm like,
geez.
oh my God. She's like, well, you're going to have to push him underneath and out. And I'm like, well, how the fuck am I supposed to do that?
Yeah. Like,
So-
how? Coach me.
Pushing, side to side. It was intense. Intense. I was like, I can't do this. You just get to a point where you're so exhausted and drained. And I was like, I can't do this. So I turned to my husband and I grab him by the shirt. And I'm like, you need to advocate for me. I want a C-section. And the poor guy, right? Like, he's so supportive and he's great. But I'm like, I need a C-section. He's like, babe, you're not having a C-section. I'm like, no, I want it. You need to advocate for me. Get the OB. I don't want.
This is how long into your process?
So, probably like an hour.
Ooh, yeah, it's exhausting.
Yeah, I was pooped. And so she's like, the OB isn't going to give you a C-section. You need to keep pushing. You got to work for it. I'm like, work for it. She's like, you're building the tunnel. I'm like, building the tunnel.
Wow, she was intense.
Yeah, I was like, okay. So the OB comes in, she's so sweet, she checks me and she's like, listen, I can't give you a C-section because of where he's at. There's a risk of fracturing his skull. So of course, that puts me in like fight or flight mode.
Mm-hmm.
And then the nurse is like, well, you better start pushing now because if you don't, because of where he is, his heart rate's going to start to slow down.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And so her and I, like, we were attitude. Like, we did not like each other.
Mm-hmm.
We were, like, I wasn't very nice. She wasn't nice. Anyways, the OB leaves. It's just me, my husband, and this nurse.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, fuck this bitch.
You're like, I'm going to show you.
Yeah. So anyways, start pushing. And I'm like, I just need to get this done. I want this done. So push, push, push. And, finally, he's coming out. And it's crazy because this nurse was the only individual in the room with my husband and I. She pretty much could have delivered the baby. Literally until his head started to crown, that's when the OB comes in.
Wow.
So anyways, his head's coming out. The OB's got him, but he's not coming out. And so she has to reach inside because his poor little arm is up like this because he loves to, and to this day, he loves sleeping with his hand right up against his face. And his little hand was stuck. So she had to go inside, kind of get the hand and turn him around to get him to come out. He's out. All is good. But as I'm giving birth, she takes the baby out. And she's like, okay. Gets my husband to cut the cord. She's like, I'll be back. I gotta go. There's another baby who's literally coming out. So I'm stuck there for 45 minutes with the placenta left in me.
And with your legs up. Like, what?
Just like lying there with this organ in my body.
Oh, no.
So I'm waiting for 45 minutes. Like, it was intense. But overall, don't think I could ever do it again. Not by choice anyways.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so that's my birthing story.
Did you feel relief when that placenta came out or what?
Yeah, I was just like, ugh. And then I saw it from a distance and like, isn't it crazy, Maria, that that's an organ
Yep.
that is only formed when you are pregnant. But then
Absolutely.
once you give birth, that organ, if it's left inside of you, can kill you.
Yeah, wild.
It blows my mind. Blows my mind. Poof.
That organ is not there for you. That organ is there for your baby. Bye.
Yeah, it's so crazy though that it's like not poison to you when you have the fetus in there, but as soon as the fetus is taken out,
Yeah.
bad. It's crazy.
It dies, right? Like, life source is essentially the baby. Once the baby's out and it's cut from your body, essentially, like the umbilical cord, goodbye. Like, that organ's no longer alive. That's wild.
Yeah, it blows my mind.
Yeah, blows my mind too.
Crazy. Anyways, enough about me, Maria. Let's chat about your birthing story.
Story. Okay, so I have two. Obviously, I have two kids, and I didn't go into detail about my pregnancy with my second, just because they were very similar. Same thing. I already knew what to expect, so treatment we did as well with him. The only differences between the pregnancies was that my daughter gave me zero symptoms, like nothing whatsoever. I just grew a belly. I had luscious hair, the best skin of life, like all of the good things that pregnancy brings along, the glow. And then with my son, I still had kind of like the glow, but extreme nausea, like
It's
extreme
so
nausea.
funny because they usually say that girls make you super sick, but yeah, me too. Having a boy made me so ill.
So sick. Like I was working with him. So because I was sick from the second that I found out, I would like puke in my mask. That was disgusting. And like obviously he was a 2021 baby, so we were still kind of navigating a lot of things in the office and I was like puking in an N95. And like if you don't know what that is, like it's a hardcore mask to take off. Like you are not joking around when you puke. You're eating that, You're just like it was absolutely disgusting with him. And that nausea lasted a long time. Like it lasted pretty much halfway through my pregnancy and a lot of food aversions with him. Like cauliflower, which I used to love. Like to this day, he's 3.5. I still can't look at cauliflower. I look at him like that's disgusting. Disgusting. So yeah, no, those are the differences in the pregnancy wise, but birthing stories similar, but there were some differences there. So because of my treatment and my blood thinners, I was scheduled in. So I had an induction. They had said to me, we can't risk you breaking your water somewhere and because of your blood thinners. So they scheduled me in for they said anywhere between 37 to 38 weeks. And then I was to stop the treatment 24 hours before just so that I wouldn't hemorrhage when delivering the baby, right? So with my daughter, it was crazy because my daughter was born a week after the entire world shut down. So hospitals were still not there was still not the enforcement or emphasis on PPE, but there was definitely an enforcement on like the amount of people that could be in the room with you. So for my daughter, it was just my husband and I. My mom missed out on that. She really wanted to be there and I wanted her to be there, but she couldn't. And even my husband was considered a guest in the room. So he wasn't allowed in and out of the room. We had to bring all of our stuff into the birthing room. And if you've ever had a child, you have a birthing room and then you have a recovery room. And so usually when you go into birthing, you just have like your birthing essentials, not really all your stuff that you're going to be at the hospital with. But at the time that my daughter was born, they were like, no, you bring everything with you. So we did like a mini little move, which by the way, that's one of my tips for your birthing story. Don't worry about the shit you bring to the hospital. Like I thought I was gonna be wearing these cute little gowns and like prepared things for fuck no.
No.
You literally wear a hospital gown. I'm not one of those people that like change. No, not for my first pregnancy at least. So anyway, so he brought everything in. He was considered a guest. Wasn't allowed to leave the room for pretty much anything. Like we were just pretty much stuck isolated in this room. Everything started off fine. I even have pictures of me getting all excited and like being in the hallway with like my gown and like walking around because they had started me on Pitocin or oxytocin and to get the contractions started because obviously my body technically wasn't ready to give birth. So they had to start all that process themselves. And I pretty much enjoyed that process. I was like, all right, this isn't too bad. Like in my head, I thought this is it. Like I've had really bad cramps my entire life. It's awesome. Like this is, yeah, okay. We just started the process. I did not know what I got myself into. And so, yeah, a couple hours later, the contractions started to get more intense and more intense. And my nurse, when we got there super early in the morning, and my nurse was phenomenal. Like the kindest, sweetest young nurse that I've ever experienced in my life. Like so nice. Anything that I wanted, she was like in and out, she would come and check on me all the time. And anyways, so as the dilation progressed, or so I thought, they would come in and check. Mind you, this is at a hospital, by the way, that it's a learning facility. It's a university type of hospital, but the maternal fetal clinic specialty is in this university hospital. So the amount of students that get to experience on you, obviously with your consent there, but is wild. So I had people coming in and out of the room all the time, like student OBs. I had student nurses coming in. So it was nice because you got a role of like people that you were interacting with, but my main nurse, the one that was assigned to me, was super, super kind, super friendly. And as the day progressed, like I wasn't progressing and dilating. And so every time the OB would come in and check, she'd be like, you're just like 1 centimeter. Like, oh, you're maybe we can call this 2 centimeters. I'm like, I've been here for 4 hours. What do you mean I haven't dilated anything? And so she said, well, remember that this is a process that we're inducing you, like you're not ready for it. So it's going to take a little longer. She was like, but I am going to start with something to help you open up the cervix. And I was like, okay. So she skipped the gel for me because she's like, that I know that's not going to work. She was like, let's just go directly into the balloon. So when you said balloon, yeah, right here. So for my pregnancy, we had the balloon, and it was horrendous. Like, it was so uncomfortable. Like, just imagine it. They're sticking a balloon in there and inflating it. And they come in every, I would say, half an hour, 45 minutes to inflate it even more inside you, right? Like, it's not a joke, right?
Yeah.
So they tape this like thing onto your leg. You're like walking around with this balloon inside you. Like, you're just like, what the F is going on? Like out of this world experience. And so anyways, at one point she just said, okay, like when the balloon is ready, it'll just pop out. But in reality, the balloon never popped out. Like she had to pull it out because she had asked me to pull it out. I was like, no, thank you. I don't want to do that. Nope. So she pulled it out. She was like, all right, I'll do it for you. So she pulled it out. She was like, okay.
Was it messy?
Like, no, because like the water hadn't broke. Like none of that had happened, right? Like it was just, they needed it to open before they could get anything moving fast.
So they put the balloon in, and do they put water in there after?
They fill the balloon with water.
Oh, they fill it with water. Got it.
Yes, it's not air. So yeah, it's pressure. You feel a lot of pressure as they inflate it.
Oof.
And then they ask you to walk
Oof.
with it. Yeah, they're like, go for a little walk. I'm like, excuse you? This thing hanging out of my leg. What do you mean? So anyways, we went for a little walk like multiple times, and then once the balloon was ready to come out, it came out. But then they checked and they were like, oh, you're like 3.5 centimeters. And I'm like, we didn't move shit. Like, what? And she's like, no, you did. This is great progress. And like, they're all hyping me up. And I'm just like, okay, like I have to get to 10 and I'm already in now I'm in pain.
Yeah.
Right. And it was weird because the pain would come when the contractions were there and then it would go away. So it was like a total mindfuck, to be honest with you. Because it was like hardcore contractions and you're like, oh my God, and your whole body just stops. Like you're just like trying to control the pain. And then it was like, okay, it's gone. I have a high pain tolerance too, so I didn't feel like it was aggressive at the beginning. But once we hit like 4.5 centimeters, I was done. I was like, no, get me the epidural. Like, I do not want to have this. And I have friends who have done full natural births, and like, kudos to you, good for you. But I think we're all superheroes because to me, my birthing plan, if I had to say I had a plan, was to do this in the least amount of pain possible.
100%.
Like I don't think that I would be more of a mom if I didn't have the epidural. Let's put it that way. So I wanted the epidural, but there was a little bit of miscommunication between my nurse and I, and she was like, "Oh, do you want the epidural?" I thought I said yes, but she didn't hear that. And so she went away and whatever, and like 40 minutes go by and I'm dying because every hour the oxytocin shoots up. And it just gets more intense and more intense. And I was like, oh my God, like these contractions are horrendous. I went in like all happy face. Now I'm like crying with these contractions. And the nurse comes back in. She was like, oh, you're really suffering. She was like, are you sure you don't want it? And I'm like, lady, I told you an hour ago that I wanted the contraction. She was super nice. And she was like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I didn't know. And then she looked at me. She was like, the anesthesiologist just stepped into surgery.
Oh my God.
I literally looked at her, I was like, what? I'm like, so how long is this surgery going to be? She's like, oh, usually an hour and a half. Like, I'm like, oh, Lord, here we go, right? So it was about an hour and a half. She nailed it on that. It was about an hour and a half. And then when he finally came in, he said the same thing to Juan. He was like, you have the option of staying. And he was like, we're going to recommend that you do just because of the scenario of the world at the time, the whole pandemic thing. And they're like, but the nurse looks at him. She was like, you need to sit down. And he was like, no, it's okay. I'm not afraid of needles. And she was like, sit down. So he was like, oh, okay. So he sat down and then he said the same thing. Like, I don't know, I've never seen the epidural needle and I don't have an intention to see it. Like, I don't care to see it. Not until I'm done having kids, I don't want to know. I don't want to know. But with him, he like got to experience it, got to see it. And he said the same thing after. He was like, that is the most intense thing that I've ever seen. And he was like, and the fact that you guys as women have to like do it while you're bent over and holding those contractions and not moving. He was like, I don't think any man would do that.
Just crazy.
Yeah, like while you're fully conscious, like it's wild. So anyways, the epidural went in and then it was like smooth sailing from there in terms of pain. Like it went, all pain went away. Everything was great. At this point, we were nearing like 7 p.m. We had been there since 7 in the morning. We were nearing 7 p.m. and I knew that there was going to be a change of nurses. So I was like trying my very best to have this baby with this nurse because she was so kind. And that didn't happen. So she was like, no, I'm leaving. She was like, but maybe this will be, she says to me, maybe this will take you into tomorrow. And then I'm back at 7 a.m. And I'm like, lady, I do not want to be here till 7 a.m. the next day. I would like you to be my nurse, but not that much.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, no, thank you. So she leaves and they do the nurse shift, and the nurse that came in, older woman, very strong built, like you could tell, and she was just like dead in the face, like just cold. And she came in, and at this point, I'm like now starting to feel like maybe the epidural is wearing off. And I tell her, I'm like, I don't know, I feel something, like I feel weird. I feel like the medication isn't working. And she was like, what are you talking about? You have a button here. Like that was our first interaction. She's like, you have a button here, utilize it. And I said, okay, but what I'm telling you is that I feel like I'm having some pain down there. And she was like, okay, well, that's not pain. She was like, is this your first? I said, yes. She goes, all first time moms say that. That's not pain, that's pressure. And in my head,
Oh
I'm
my
like,
God.
this is my body and I'm the one experiencing it. Like, don't tell me that it's pressure when I can tell you that it's pain. So I didn't say that to her at the beginning. I just kind of looked at Juan and I was like, okay, I'm just not going to say anything. I'll just let her leave the room. She leaves the room. And as she leaves the room, my body went into like shock. I started shivering so bad.
Yeah, it's
Like,
crazy sensation, right?
did you have it?
I did. I was like shaking like a leaf. Like literally like seizure like in the bed.
Like Juan was like, are you okay? And I'm like, I can't control the shakes. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm literally, and I felt so cold. I
Yeah.
felt freezing.
That's why
And
they
I'm like,
got
oh
the
my,
beautiful warm blankets in there.
wow. Well, that did not help me. I'll tell you that. Well, also the nurse didn't get me more, but so anyway, so yeah, so I started shaking and I started like freaking out. By this time, it was like, I don't know, I want to call it like 11 p.m. So I'd been there for a long time now. It was like 11 p.m., 11:30, and the OB comes in to check, and she was like, "Yeah, you're like 8 centimeters. You're still not ready to push." And I'm like shaking, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. And she was like, "Yeah, it's part of the epidural process. Some women experience it. Blah blah blah. You just happen to be one." And I'm like, "Great." So she was like, "You know what? I'm just gonna step out of the room." This was more like close to midnight. She was like, "I'm just gonna step out of the room. You're only about 8 centimeters." She was like, "I'm gonna go have a snack." She was like, "You're my last." She's like, "You're my last woman, like last mom to check." She was like, "I'm gonna go have a snack and then I'm gonna come in here because you're like 8 centimeters, so we'll check on you more frequently." I'm like, "Okay, yeah, whatever." Like at this point, I'm like, still experiencing pain because it was pain. I truly feel like the epidural had weaned off a bit. She leaves the room and the nurse comes in, and the nurse is like, changing some stuff around, like writing some shit down. And as I hear the door click close, I look at the nurse and I said, "I'm pushing." And she looked at me and she was like, "The OB just told you you're 8 centimeters. You're not pushing." And I'm like, "No, I don't know. I don't know how to explain this." I said, "My body feels like it's pushing by itself. Like I'm not actually trying to push, but I also can't control it."
That's so
And
weird.
I said, "I feel like I'm closing my legs. Like I need to like close my legs because I feel like my body's pushing." And she was like, "No, you're not. Stop complaining." She was so mean. She was like, "Stop complaining. Like this is just your first time. It's just a lot of pressure under there." I'm like, "No, I'm literally pushing." At one point I got so mad. And I was like, "You're not fucking listening to me." I said, "I'm telling you that I have pain and that my body is pushing." And so reluctantly, she rolled her eyes, okay? She rolled her eyes. And by the way, my Veronica was like, her heart rate was just coming down and wouldn't come back up. So there was a lot of like other stuff that was going on. But at that time, I was like, okay, like check me. So she rolled her eyes and she was like, fine. So she lifts up the blanket. Mind you, the doctor had just stepped out and I was apparently 8 centimeters. She rolled up the blanket and she was like, "Oh my God." And so of course she's, and I'm like, what the fuck is happening? She runs over to the wall, presses a button, fucking lights flicker on, the whole thing. There's an alarm going. I have a whole team rushing in. They're like, "What happened?" The OB comes in with a bar, like a granola bar in her mouth. And she's like, "What happened?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And the nurse is like, "She's ready. Like, let's go." It's fucking chaos at this point. One is like half asleep and he's like waking up and he was like, what's going on? I was like, I don't know. They're like propping the bed up. They're like, "No, you're pushing." And I'm like, "Well, what do you mean?" And they're like, you're ready." The OB gets down there and she was like, "Oh my God, that's the head." I was like, "What? Did you not just say I was 8 centimeters?" She was like, "Well, sometimes this happens." So she's like gearing up, like putting all her shit on. And they're like, "All right, push." I'm like, "What?" We went from like, oh, it's calm and quiet and like dark in here and like I'm shivering to like go time. So this was like by the time that I was propped up and like legs up and like ready to go, I was the one that did like 3 pushes and away, like out she came. So she was 20 minutes, 20-minute push and out she came. And when she came out, everybody was like, oh my God, she's tiny.
How much did she weigh?
She weighed 5 pounds, 10 ounces.
Oh, she was so tiny.
A little bean, like a little bean, but
Oh.
very, very, very strong. And so yeah, so that birthing story was chaotic. It was just all chaotic because I was like, this lady's not listening to me, and then it proved her wrong, right? So
Yeah.
Why you should be your biggest health advocate. For my son, it was a similar story. I already knew what to expect. It was more exciting because I was like, oh, I get to meet this little tiny human. Unlike a lot of women, I don't enjoy the pregnancy, but I do enjoy delivery. And maybe it's because mine is so planned and I know that at the end of it, like I'm gonna have a baby in my arms, that I'm like, oh, I look forward to that day. It's fucking weird, but that's just me. So for my son, it was very similar. We walked in, like, same setup, same thing. We didn't have to have a balloon with him. Like he pushed himself down a bit, so no need to insert anything. We just kind of started with the oxytocin, and then similar after the epidural, I fell asleep for a bit. It was great. Like he was just such a chill. He was a chill delivery process because I fell asleep. I felt rested, and then at like 3 a.m, I woke up from that sleep and I looked at my husband. I said, "It's go time," as a joke, and he understood what that meant because we had experienced that with my first daughter. And at this time my mom was in the room with us and my mom's like, oh, okay, it's go time, okay, like you're getting ready, and I'm like, oh no, like we're pushing now. So I press the button and the nurse is like, can I help you? This 3 a.m, so it's like everything's quiet. She's like, can I help you? And I'm like, yeah, I'm ready to push. And she was like, okay, we're coming in. I'm like, no, my first pregnancy, like I said, ready to push, and we pushed within 20 minutes. She was like, oh my God. She was like, I'm coming. Within seconds, she came in, turned the lights on, checked, and she was like, you're ready to push.
That's
like,
so
okay.
crazy that, like,
Yeah.
you know your body now. Like, if you were to ever have a baby again, it would probably be a similar experience. And, like, it's like your body just knows.
Yep. He came out, same thing. He came out actually even shorter than 20 minutes. He came out within 3 pushes. I think the span was like 6 minutes. Yeah, 6-minute push. And he was out. And I remember the first thing, like I'm crying obviously because I love, that. And it's like, it's such a miracle to see your baby come out. But then they put him on my chest and I went to go kiss him and I'm like, you stink. Like, which is something is so funny. I didn't experience that with Veronica at all. Like, it was just so much love. And with him, I was like, wow, you are a stinky boy.
But it's like, why did he smell?
No idea. But the nurses were laughing. They were dying. Like, the OBs too. They were like, wow, that's the first thing that you say to your son. I'm like, it just came out. Like,
Typical boy.
Yeah. I know, birthing story was great. And so I guess my tip on that is, if you have a birthing plan, just prepare for any changes to that, because it can all change within seconds of you even starting the process. So just roll with the dice.
Yeah, no, totally. Wow. Yours was very exciting.
And maybe that's why I like it, because I'm like, they've both been like little surprises.
No, and that's why it's like, it's just so good to hear other people's stories. And I wish I was able to hear other people's stories more before heading in to have our little guy, because, I was very naive and not as prepared as I thought it would be.
Yeah. Well, that's why we wanted to share this with all of you listening, so that you can see that there are many different birthing stories, and that, you just make your birthing story whatever you want in the moment.
And that is it for today, folks.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We will see you next week, and we would like to thank you for all of your support so far. It's been great to see that, and hopefully you enjoy everything coming your way. Bye.